Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. I'm here with RJ. This is Comic Book Team Up. I always forget the name of the shows are on. I'm starting to get at that point where I get everything mixed up. So this is Wednesday night. This is Comic Book Team Up, where RJ and I, and sometimes another guest, will come on and we'll talk comics. But I've been promoting my comic, and I've been neglecting going out and getting people. And the few people that I did message were busy tonight, so it's just gonna be RJ and I. How you doing?
Zach Dan is here already.
Oh yeah, Zach Tan's always the first in with a blessing. If I don't get my blessing from Zach Tan, I don't know what I'm going to do. I freak out. First, I want to ask, a couple of people have been complaining about my audio. How do I sound? And now it looks like my video is a little foggy. I don't know if I've been messing with the settings because I've been trying to. My settings are normal. Yeah. How's my audio sound, everybody? I just looks like it's working. Looks like. Yeah, it looks like okay, so there's nothing I can do about it. I'm ordering a microphone. I hope I get it soon. Here is RJ's link. I forgot to put it in the live chat, so here we go with this. And RJ, if I click on your link, is it going to bring up a website or anything that you want me to show off?
The Indiegogo preview page. It has my trailer and a couple of pieces of art.
Okay, I'll bring that up. So let's bring that up. Fair is fair. It's our show together, so let's bring up your stuff. And then I'm all discombobulated. My wife just came home. She was away. She got like a promotion at work, so she went on a business trip, and she was all excited about it until she got there. She goes, "Now I know why they sent me. Nobody else wanted to go. This is boring." But my poor cats, they're freaking out. They miss her, you know. I'm feeding them, and they're looking at me like, "You don't feed me the correct way." Do you have cats, RJ?
No,
Yeah.
no, my wife's doesn't like. Well, she actually really likes cats. She's allergic to them though.
That's terrible. I love. Oh, we got Ben Sabar. How you doing, Ben? I'm waving like you can see me. Like I'm waving like we can see each other. And says, "Don't worry. I'm sure RJ for the Fourth Age will carry the program." Yes. Congratulations to her. Yes, she's happy. She not to bring everybody down, but she was so nervous about flying because it just seems to be like a whole string of airplane accidents. So she was like, I was like, "Call me when you land," you know what I mean? And then last night, you know, it's funny because my wife goes away. This is like the first time in what, 22 years of marriage that we spent like any significant time away from each other. My friend's like, "What are you gonna do?" Yeah, it's like, "Well, I'm gonna play my Supremes records really loud." That's what I did. I got every Supreme. You know, it's one of the weirdest bands that I just love, and I was like, just blast my Supremes records loud. I played some Fleetwood Mac at a unadvisable volume. There you go, living the life. Did anything just happen? I just got a message. Did my screen just fade out or anything? All right, so
Nope.
let's play your trailer. That looks good. That looks good. Oh, I threw you over.
I always throw up my logo at the end. It's becoming a thing to throw it up with fire.
Yeah. So let's talk about that logo for a second. Is there anything else? Oh, just sign. So everybody, put in your email over here, and you'll get notified. So we can close that. So, I don't know what's going on. I'm hitting the wrong buttons today. So what is your logo then? I've always looked at it. And I always thought it was like a hippogriff or an eagle or something, but it's some sort of bird, huh?
It's an owl, because if you go follow me on Twitter, I use the Owl of Athena for wisdom, right?
Oh,
So Nick actually designed it for me. So it's an owl, and it's supposed to represent the 7 virtues, because
oh,
if you count the feathers, you get 7 altogether, right?
okay.
The 3 theological virtues at the bottom, which is the tail feathers, and then your prudence, justice, temperance, fortitude are the on the side. So that
Oh, okay. I just thought it was like a like a medieval coat of arms, like a hippogriff or something. Cool, cool. Yeah, Nick makes good logos. Nick made my patriarch logo, and he did the heroic tales. The block letters that I put on the comics. Yeah, Nick does good. Nick does good work. And speaking of Nick, he's doing the art for Crom the Destroyer, right?
yes, he is. I have to get back to him. I'm late on trying to approve some pages that he sent me. Although he's stuff is spectacular. I just got to say.
And he's got something with Literature Devil coming out. I forgot the Lady Midnight. I think it was the name of it.
Oh
Looks
yeah,
good.
that's right.
Yeah, so good. Wish Nick all the best. If you're watching, Nick, wish you the best. What's it say? I have a good thought. RJ's logo is based heavily on his. Not a lot of people know that RJ is a bird. He's a talking parrot. So there you go. How'd you guess? Can't stay long, but hey, John, hey, chat. Hey, good to see you, Mark's Music Obsession. How's everything? Abrax says it's a really good chat. Hey, good to see you, Abrax. What a hoot. And so I guess since you're talking about an upcoming project, I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden, 3 artists reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'd like to work with you," and I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" Because my next comic project is going to be the Patriarch #1, and that's going to be his origin. And the Patriarch's origin is super complicated and super doused in worldly lore that I was like, I can't just put it in issue #1 because it's going to chase people away, and then nobody's going to get it. Does that make sense? So issue #1 was like, an adventure of the Patriarch. Issue #2 of Heroic Tales has another adventure of the Patriarch, and then I said I'm going to spin him off into his own comic. So he's going to get his own full-sized comic with his origin, and I like it because I get to explain all the cool details, all the the lore that I already spoiled it, that every superhero has 2 origins: the government approved origin and the actual origin. Because RG, does this make sense to you? If you could get spider powers from a radioactive bite, don't you think like Labs and Dr. Octopus and Lex Luthor and all these guys would be replicating this and just making Spider-Man warriors? Like, or am I just too logical in my thinking?
That's my problem with all of this legacy character stuff, quite honestly. It's the fact that if you can reproduce it, then why wouldn't it be like that?
Right.
I always thought there's something going on that you don't know what's going on, and it's not reproducible. That's why you get a unique character and you have superpowers.
Right, because I mean, as far as the lore of the world, I'm not sure if the average person knows how Spider-Man got his powers. I'm not sure if the average person knows how the Hulk got his powers or Daredevil. But everybody knows how the Fantastic Four got his powers. So don't you think like the Chinese would be sending up rockets with people in it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, or North Korea would be sending people up to get like Fantastic Four powers constantly. So I was thinking about that. So in my world, there's 2 or 3 different ways to get superpowers. And the government doesn't want the average person to figure it out. I think that's a logical story. So the government has an agency that just handles superheroes, and the Patriarch is getting fed up with them. So, this is, I maybe I'm telling too much, but in issue #1, it's going to be like a celebration of the Patriarch's 20th anniversary of being the Patriarch, and they're going to do the celebration stuff like that. And he's just like, I can't lie anymore. You know what I mean? I just can't lie anymore, because the way the government tells the origin, his kids think he's going to have superpowers, but the superpowers don't transfer. So it's causing the problem in his family and stuff like that. So this I couldn't tell the story in issue 1. It was just too much too quick, So, but I don't know. I just think like if there really was superpowers, they're not even telling us if like food dye is good for us or bad for us, or why there's fluoride in the water. They're going to tell us, oh yeah, you could get cosmic powers if you just go down over here and jump in this crater. You know what I mean? So I think that's a logical story, that they're all the superheroes kind of have like a government handler. And some of them are more cooperative than others. You know what I mean? And I like to have like logical weaknesses. So even the superheroes can't take on the whole government. For maybe if they all banded together, but whatever. I'm giving away too much.
It's sidetrack here. When you're just talking about, wouldn't they send other people up to try to get the Fantastic Four powers? Wouldn't
right.
Isn't the UFOs?
Yeah, they did it with the UFOs. You're absolutely right. I forgot about that. And then the red ghost did it with the apes.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. So like I'm trying to think. Like Firestorm fell into a reactor and he became the most powerful being in the world. I know that in the Captain Atom comics they replicated his origin. They made Major Force. So like there is precedent in the comics, but like again, it's kind of vague. Like, does the average person know? I mean, the average person doesn't know Peter Parker or Spider-Man, but does the average person know that he was bitten by a radioactive spider? I kind of forget. So like wouldn't like, don't you think like the bad guys who let's just say the North Koreans and the Iranians, don't you think they would be detonating bombs on people to get Hulks and then just throwing those Hulks in America? You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think, again, maybe I'm too logical, but I just think like if there was superheroes and you could just stumble upon accidents, especially mutants, if there really was mutants, don't you think the government, our government did syphilis tests on innocent people? You don't think they would do mutant tests on innocent people? Sorry about it, but now we got a warrior who could shoot eye beams and take out gigantic robots from a distance. You know what I mean? At no cost. So that's.
I always thought that DC's attempt to do the metahuman gene was to try to fix that, but they messed it up severely. It's the fact that you can do these things to normal people, and it's not going to give them superpowers. But if you have the metahuman gene, which is unique to every human being because you're a unique person, and then you get exposed to it, then something happens, right?
Right. Yeah, that was they kind of dropped that, DC. That was like a storyline for a little while. Yeah, the Lazarus
invasion. Yeah,
don't you think there would be like government controlled Lazarus pits? Like, I mean, is it a secret that there's Lazarus pits, or like you don't think the Mossad or CIA knows about Lazarus pits? You know what I mean? And like, or it has them, like the immortal emperor of the United States or something like that, or they have like JFK in a cave somewhere secretly calling the shots. I don't know. That's the way I think. Like, did you ever read the Elementals?
Yes.
Yeah, the Elementals had like logical consequences of superpowers in their world, and ever since then it changed the way I think. I mean, I still love superheroes, obviously, but I'm trying to like have like a real world consequence. Like if Reed Richards really worked, like if there really was a Reed Richards, we would have like this retro future world like they show in the movies. There would be flying cars and the cure for cancer and stuff like that. Otherwise, what good is Reed Richards? Or if there were the Inhumans and Wakanda, everything like that, this whole world would be a vastly different place. Or just Peter Parker made those web shooters. Just imagine if police had web shooters, they could apprehend criminals without like deaths and things like that. But I don't know. I in my role playing game, again, it always comes back to my role playing game, and it's always this is the role playing game. And if we get to $100,000 on my campaign, RJ's coming, and we're gonna make up a character. He's gonna be Thomas Valiant, and we're gonna play a game. But whenever my players, they always want to become inventors. They always sooner or later try to invent technology, and I always have to come up with a way to like hamper that, because once they invent these cool things, you can never put it back, and it levels it ups the level of your game, and next thing you know, like and of course I believe in continuity, and it's the same story that we've been playing for 20 years. So next thing you know, like your next characters are already like this much higher, and then like every adventure has to be Galactus. So I always try to like put in fail safes and flaws into technology.
That's what I do a little bit. Well, we'll give away some things here, but it's just
spoiler night. Spoiler night
for the Thomas Valiant universe. That's why there's a thing in it that I always reference that I never actually talk about, which is warp fields. There's warp fields all over every the city and things like that. It's the fact that basically it was two worlds that were combined into one because I use amalgam as my basis, right? And the fact is that there's basically certain areas where things don't work correctly. So it has to do with the whole door thing you saw in Fade to Blue, where he's cracking, the glass and things like that. It also has to do with the other worlds and doors. I always talk about doors in the Celtic mythology kind of way. But anyway, there's certain sections of the earth that are affected by this and certain sections that are not. And therefore certain sections where people's powers don't work and where they just can't go. And on top of that, it's so much like that. And this is part of my backstory, which I wrote for the whole world. But on top of that, it's that these places are so concentrated that most of the world, when they see all these superheroes on television things, they don't believe they're true. They don't actually believe. They think it's just, made up, and they're doing it in, pseudo New York or stuff like that, just to make it look like there are actually people with superpowers. You live in the middle of Ohio or something like that. It's like, that's not real.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, I mean, in my world, people, you get to see like, I started at the beginning of this talking about 3 artists reach out to me. Well, one of them is Luke Stone. I sent him a script. One of them is Stippling Vaughn. I sent him a script. And another one is Marcus Kellegrew, and I'm working on a script for him. And the Stippling Vaughn is set in Revolutionary War America. So I'm like trying to show you that there's been a tradition of like superpowered beings, like in Marvel DC, like they had like Vandal Savage. There's legendary stuff. So people are kind of like, okay, there is super beings, but like it's so rare and it's cool, and they follow them, and so they accept it, and but they move on, because at this point it's like, yeah, there's always been superpowered beings. Like during COVID, 3 weeks into COVID, everybody just accepted this was the new normal. You know what I mean? Like the human beings are pretty accepting. You think we're gonna riot, you think there's gonna be panics and stuff like that, but it's just like, yeah, we live inside now. We don't go outside. The government tells us the air is scary, so we sit inside now. So that's the way it is with superheroes. Yeah, there's guys that can fly, there's guys that can't fly. And and the average person is just like, it's not going to happen to me, because the average person who gets hit by lightning dies. But 1 out of a billion people gets lightning powers. But that's not really how you get superpowers. If they all knew how you could get superpowers, they would all understand, oh, we can do this. So like that's one of the things the United States is like, we don't want the Soviet Union to find out, or Russia or China or North Korea, because can you imagine, like these are human weapons of mass destruction that can disguise themselves as a shape-changing nuclear powered being or something like that.
It's funny you should mention that Vandal Savage, because I basically have a character that gets introduced within Fade to Blue, which is based upon the character that Vandal Savage was based upon, which is Count of Saint Germain, I think.
Oh, okay. So Vandal Savage was based on a real person, the Count of Saint Germain?
I think, if I remember correctly, Count of Saint Germain basically was this count that showed up in European society in the 1800s, and nobody knew where he came from. And he could do all these amazing things, but no one, like no one could tell where he was from, and he never actually told anybody any of this stuff. And he just kept on getting wined and dined because he could do all these things. No one ever knew who he was or where he came from, and he just was mysterious lord.
This sounds so
all over Europe.
I must have read this years ago, but this is fascinating. This is something I got to look up for. And like I said, I always rip off RJ. So issue of Heroic Tales #3 has the Count of Saint Germain story in it. I'll tell you. I'm like all excited. So I sent Luke Stone a script, and these are no rushes, because I already have like the next issue or 2 planned. So I don't know when I can fit these stories in. So I told these guys, take your time doing it. There's no rush. But Luke Stone's doing a story called The Sleeper Agent, and I kind of want to explore how dreams and things like that work. And the main character is the Sleeper Agent. There's a government agency, like a SHIELD. They're called Aegis in my world. Right on the nose, right? SHIELD. And just like the Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. series in the 60s by Steranko, they had an Esper squad, but they also have a sleep squad, like a sleeper agents that invade people's dreams. Well, this is one of the last of the sleeper agents. So that's going to be his story. And then Stippling Vaughn, RJ, has this ever happened to you? I woke up last Wednesday with 2 fully formed stories in my head. I just had to change 2 minor details, but other than that, I'm like, oh my god, these are full story, and I got so excited. I started working on a script for him, and then the next day, two artists like, hey, you want to work together? I was like, this would be perfect for you. This would be perfect. But have you ever just had that burst of like, oh my god, this is a full story? Like I couldn't wait to come home from work. I was thinking about it all day. I came home and I just started typing.
Yeah, it usually happens to me in the car because I don't listen to the radio very much. I'm on just going into town, which is an hour drive, and then back again. Yeah, I just think of an entire story. It's like I just pull on a thread, and all of a sudden it's there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I got so Stippling Vaughn is going to be working. He has like this woodcut, like beautiful style, like real classical. So I was like, do you want to do a story set in Revolutionary War America? And he was like, yeah, sure. So there's gonna be a superhero called the Printer's Devil. Do you know what a printer's devil is?
No, I don't.
It's an old term for a printer's apprentice, and they called them devils because they were always covered in ink and they looked mischievous. So a printer has an apprentice called a printer's devil, and I've been hearing about that term forever. And I always thought it would be like a cool period piece for a superhero. So the Printer's Devil. I'm not going to tell everybody the story, but it's about an apprentice printer that needs to go out and do something. And again, I'm being vague on purpose. So just think of like a 15-year-old Robin, but in Revolutionary War America. He's going to save the Constitutional Congress. It's set a month before the Constitutional Congress. Something happens, and James Madison needs help. And the funny thing is, he's not doing it to save America. He's not doing because they're living under the Articles of Confederation, and people like, we don't want a constitutional convention. We just fought off tyranny. This is the best it's ever going to get. Now you guys are going to go in and take over. What are you going to make somebody a king? We can't have. So there was people who were against the articles, the Constitution. So that's what's going on now. There's people that are fine with the Articles of Confederation. So it's going to be one of those stories where the bad guy's not really a bad guy. You know what I mean? In hindsight, he's a bad guy. But anyway, the kid's not doing what he's doing because he of any grants. He's doing it because if his print shop goes out of business, he doesn't have a trade and he can't get married, and he's kind of a horny teenager. So I just think that's funny. Out of all of this grand, we're going to save the Union, we're going to save America, we're going to do this, and he's just like, if I'm going to blow my chance with Jenny, Jenny's going to move on to the next guy. So he puts on a costume and fights crime. I just think that's funny.
That's actually really grounded, I think, John.
Right. I mean, he's a kid. It maybe his next adventure will be a little bit more, what's the word, heroic. And then I've been thinking about this idea. Like I kept talking about how my stories, this conspiracy theories. So I just want to have a Ditko inspired. So here's a character that's a total. I mean, if you love the source material, it's an homage. If you don't like the source material, it's a ripoff. So I'm doing an homage to the Question, and therefore Mr. A, and therefore Rorschach. And I have a character called the Public Eye, and it's gonna be set in the 70s, and he's out investigating, and he's putting together the pieces of the grand conspiracy. So it's he's I don't want to say non-powered. He has an interesting, weird power that he himself doesn't know he has. Somebody else is like, you realize you have a power, and he's like, that's impossible. I was never bitten by a spider. Like he's like one of these guys. So he's going to put together the pieces of the grand conspiracy, the Public Eye. So these are other stories that I'll be working with besides Renzo. And I got 4 or 5 stories. Renzo is working on three stories for me right now, just because I'm a crazy person, and I can't, now that I got the comic book writing bug, I'm like, Renzo, you want to do this story? You want to do this story? So I give him choices. Whatever ones he doesn't want, I'll send to somebody else. What do we see here? Nothing see here. Ordinary super. Now get to work and pay your taxes. Pretty much. The Count sounds a bit like the internet story of the man from Torred. I don't know that. That sounds interesting. Wait to publish the Printer's Devil for the next year, the 250th anniversary of our nation. It probably won't happen until then anyway, but that's a really good idea. There are worse motivations. Well, true love, or true lust. He's 15 years old. The things you do when you 15 years old when you don't have a car, you got to do what you got to do. John, if you ever get the funding, you have more than enough books to keep you. Yeah. And I still have two secret projects that I haven't mentioned that I started working with. One of them I keep teasing that it's a historical mythological blend, and the other one's Eddie is Doomed. Everybody knows about that one. So you got any future projects you want to spoil?
Well, I'm working on Fade to Blue still. We're working on the third book. I think we might have the third book done before we get everything ready. There's Artemis, which is the manga, and Renzo's working on the Thomas Valley #2 as well. But I'm actually really trying to focus on Crown Destroyer to get it out there before we move on to anything else. Although I'm running out of printed copies of the Valiant Heroes. The people keep on ordering them, so I'm thinking
good.
I might actually. There was a guy I was talking to. He basically has a Crom page. What is it, like YouTube channel? Just talks about Crom. I did an interview with him about a month ago, and he does publishing on demand. Or well, actually, he doesn't do it himself, but his books go publishing on demand. We talked about it for a while, and I was thinking I might actually put my books up on a publishing on demand site so that when I run out of books, people can still order them that way. So that's
Cool.
something I'm looking into.
Let me know how that goes. Because I if anybody's interested, I still have a box full of Heroic Tales first printing. All the various covers. I went nuts. And I made an equal amount of all the covers, but they didn't sell equally. So I got some more than others. And believe it or not, right now I'm looking at the second printing cover for Heroic Tales #1 because I'm anticipating selling out. So always got to plan ahead. Always got to plan ahead. This cover's so good. What else was I going to say? There's this. I got so many ideas in my head. I was talking to another artist, and as we were talking, he was like, I got to drop out. Like literally like, oh yeah, I'll work with you. Let's do this. And I was telling him the story. And then like, I got to drop out. I got a really good offer that I can't turn down. So it was that. But it's, it makes me feel good that artists are coming up to me. It's like, I'd like to work with you. If anybody's an artist and, I pay me, like, as RJ was talking, I paid the guy who did the cover art for the, as we were talking, I pay immediately. Oscar Crando says, I worked for Marvel Comics, and he goes, John, you pay immediately. Sometimes you have to wait months to get money from Marvel. Bill Williams did my lettering, so he sent me the files of the lettering, and I was looking it over. He's like, okay, I was like, well, what's the total? And he gives me the total, and I paid him. He goes, that was quick. I was like, I don't like having bills over my head. I want to get it over with. So, and I don't know. It didn't have a good reputation as the guy who pays fast, and then the guy who argues with his creative staff. I don't know. Now I'm babbling. So, what else is going on? What do you think about Superman? You excited?
I really haven't watched that much of the trailers for Superman. I've been focusing on the Fantastic Four stuff.
I like what you said about the Fantastic Four. You articulated my thoughts that I wasn't able to like crystallize. But yeah, it's gonna be my big thing is, as soon as I saw, first off, none of the four actors are who I would have cast as the Fantastic Four. Like, it doesn't matter who plays the Thing because he's gonna be Ben Grimm for 10 minutes. But when he's Ben Grimm, he doesn't have the voice. He looks like Ben Grimm from the comics, but he's supposed to have like a what a revoltant, like he doesn't even speak with the outdated Brooklyn mannerisms that Ben Grimm is famous for. But the worst is Pedro Pascal. He's going to be a wimpy, ineffectual guy, and Reed Richards is just supposed to be the coolest.
The more and more I watch the trailer, the more and more I see tiny little things. It's like they're going to be using basically 5 years ago Fantastic Four to try to sell this thing, where Sue Richards is basically the leader of the Fantastic Four. When the Silver Surfer supposedly comes down and says, are you the protectors of this earth? Who answers that question? It's Susan Storm. It's not Mr. Fantastic who answers that question.
And then he says to his wife, I don't know what I've done, or it's all my fault, something like that. I don't know. I'm rereading The Lensman right now, and one of the things that struck out to me is they're in a ship now, and they're all scientists, and they're all super cool. That they're the top scientists, but they're also like fighters and explorers and adventurers and men's men. You know, back in the 30s and 40s and 50s and even the 60s, scientists were cool, you know, and now they got this nerd reputation. And, you know, I just, Reed Richards was, you read the early Fantastic Four, he was the coolest guy. You know, the first 10 issues of the Fantastic Four, they kind of made him a little sinister. They made Ben mean. You know, Johnny was always kind of the same, and Sue was just the human hostage. But somewhere around 15 or so, they got their personalities. And Reed was a little, you know, sometimes when he had a problem to solve, he would get hyper focused, you know, but I don't consider that a bad thing when you got the responsibility of defeating Namor, who's about to destroy all of Manhattan. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, all right. So I can't take the wife out food shopping tonight. I got to stop Namor from destroying the planet. You know, I don't know. I just don't. That's one of the main reasons I made the Patriarch. I'm just so tired of how the fathers, you know, and Reed Richards is the father figure of Marvel. I just don't like the way he's portrayed lately.
When you're talking, it made me think of something. I don't know why my brain went here, but it's really funny when the sequel to The Thing from Another World came out, you know, how many years ago, but they were comparing the two movies, you know, the one from the early 80s and the one that came out as this so-called sequel. But you look at the one from the early 80s and you had all these guys who were scientists and they just look like guys that you would pull off the street, right? You know, I'm sure that if they're actors, they could make themselves look good in some way, but in the movie, they just look like guys you could pull off the street. Whereas the new one
with Kurt Russell,
yeah, the one with Kurt Russell,
yeah, they look like construction workers and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, they look like men's men. You know.
Yep. And where they made the new one, supposedly, you know, for the Norwegian camp, everybody that's an actor in that movie looks like they just come off a GQ shoot and they just put them in parkas, right?
Yeah, Wilford Brimley was one of the scientists. That, you know, that guy ain't winning no model awards. You know. I love. He's got my favorite line in the thing. They lock him in the shed in the back because they think he goes great. He goes, "I want to come out now. I'll behave." You know, there's guys that I work with, construction workers, and some of these guys are like electrical engineers, and some of these guys like, you know, they're the experts in like high voltage electricity, and when they show up, they look like they could beat up everybody. You know, these guys are men, tough men doing a tough job, but they're the smartest people you've ever met. You know, there's no like little nerdy wimpy guys. You know what I mean? That's like such a Hollywood. I don't know. Maybe in government work. I don't know. I don't work for the CIA secret labs, but you know, I don't know. Scientists used to be cool. That used to be the, you know. Like Indiana Jones, that Reed Richards was Indiana Jones before he could stretch, and now he's just like, sorry, Sue, yeah, you know, yeah, I'll put up the garbage. Tony Grigo wants to get political here. He wants to know, what, RJ, any thoughts on the Canadian election?
Two thoughts on that. Number one, it's not as bad as everybody here is making it out to be on the internet, because literally it's half the country voted for the Conservative Party. The way the first past the post system works, you don't get seats, you don't form a government. Secondly, they have a minority government, so they could be toppled pretty easily. So, you know, it's not as bad as everybody's making out. They're going to have to make massive concessions in order to stay in power. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that.
The Canadian system is a mystery to me. It doesn't seem to have any rules. Kind of like the British system, you know. It's like
it is the British system, basically.
Yeah, I was just like, I was talking to somebody about that. I'm like, well, you know, they're all complaining about like these liberal progressives. I'm like, well, vote for conservative. He goes, even the conservatives are liberal progressive. He goes, the whole system is designed to keep the conservatives out. I was like, well, Allah Akbar. What do you want me to say?
Yeah, no, I always say that basically, hey, there's Michael. Basically, the Conservative Party in Canada is left of the Democrats in the U.S.
Right. Hey, Dave, Michael, do you guys want to come in and join with us? We don't have any guests. Just let me know if you want to. I'll send you the links. It's same here. Our conservatives are center left. Yeah, which is why. You know, we're getting real political here, but I just have to laugh because it for those of you who are in Canada or whatever, Trump was a Democrat up until like 10 years ago. Tulsi Gabbard was a Democrat until like 3 weeks ago. RFK ran as a Democrat. This should have been the Democratic ticket. It just shows you how far left the Democrats got. That, and the whole cabinet is basically ex-Democrats. The president's an ex-Democrat, and they're like, these guys are like so right wing. It's like, dude, these guys aren't even right wing. You know what I mean? They're ex-Democrats. It just shows you how. What do they call that? The Overton window or whatever.
Send Bancroft the
yes, Michael Bancroft. I will send you an invite on Twitter. So go ahead, RJ. Speak while I find Bancroft.
No, honestly, it's not as bad as everybody's making it out to be. But at the same time, you got to realize that Canada is like 4 cities and the rest is all just tundra. It's like most of the country where all this nonsense, or most of the cities where all this nonsense is going on, where you get all these immigrants coming in and things like that. That's not most of the country. That's like, I don't know, maybe 2 to 5% of the entire country. The rest of the people out in the rest of the country are just country folk, really, honestly.
Okay, I just sent Michael Bancroft and David Brink the links if you want to come in. Hey, Bancroft, how you doing?
Yo.
How's it go? What time is it there? I'm always fascinated by time zones.
11 a.m. on Thursday.
Oh, my God. He's called us from the future. What are the lottery numbers?
5, 6, 7.
Oh, you're supposed to send me a DM.
8,
now I got to split it with 56 people.
And 34.
Yeah. People are saying, like, let's make Canada a state. No. Now we're going to have 2 more liberal senators. Come on, guys. Be smart.
It sounds like Canada is exactly the same as Australia.
Yeah, pretty much.
We got 7 cities, not even 5 cities, and only two or three majors. We got the same parliamentary system, except
we got snow and you got sand. That's about it. That's the difference.
Yeah. Our Liberals are the Conservative Party, and our left party are Labour, except the Liberals are pretty centre-left now by today's standards.
So you got snow commies and sand commies. That's the difference that I'm hearing.
Yeah, pretty much.
The Conservatives here are, up until recently, were called the Progressive Conservatives. Just to let you know how left they are in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, our Labour Party is socialist/communist left, and then the Conservatives are centre left, sort of, That's how it is.
I just remember, I'm in a union, and I remember when I was an apprentice, they would talk about, all the businesses went overseas. We need to bring up tariffs to discourage all this overseas and bring industry back to America. Now we're doing it, and my union is like, we got to get rid of Trump. I'm old enough to remember when we wanted tariffs, But what do I know?
Yeah, it's all upside down. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's just bad. Orange man bad.
So since we got Bancroft here, I really want to know, since I haven't been on his channel for a little while. Bancroft, we're talking about new projects that we're working on. What are you working on right now?
Oh, good question.
I am working on the one-shot action comic Fractured Mind, which is a prequel to the main Lucent series. That's the one that's drawn by Rod Looper, and I'm doing the colors on it. And that is going to go live in about a month. So I'm kind of ramping up promotion, getting ready for all that. But I still got a lot to do.
Oh, cool. Good. It's
going to be just a comic, or is it going to be graphic novel length? So it sounds like
it's going to be a 36-page one shot. So yeah, it'll be saddle stitched. I don't know what I'm going to do with the covers. It all depends on how well it goes. If I do something fancy on them. If not, if I don't raise enough, it'll just be, a regular comic. And there'll be 2 variants. I've never done that before.
Oh, you never have variant covers?
No, no, I've got edition covers, so I've got a hardcover edition and a softcover edition. But no, I don't traditionally do variants.
Yeah, people say that I'm crazy because I have 4 covers, but only 2 editions because it's a flip book. People are like, nah, you should have made 4, and people would. I just felt that would have been cheap, you know. I feel like I would have been bilking my audience. You know,
like people are gonna buy it. They're not forced to buy it. Like you
right?
don't have to.
Yes,
You know,
yeah, absolutely right.
Like for me, there's only a handful of people I would actually want to get a variant by, and I did ask one of them, and they were like, "I'm too busy at the moment, just doing other stuff." So I was like, you know what? I think 2 is good. You know.
Yeah. And all your stories are somehow dreamings, right? Oh, it's
yeah. Well, especially this one because the whole book is set inside a dream, which normally wouldn't make sense because why does it matter? But in the Lucent, you know, dreams actually it's kind of just more like another world. It's kind of like you know that human consciousness sort of thing. It's like tapping into that. So.
John was just talking about a book he was working on that has something to do with dreams. Made me think of Dreamscape.
Yeah,
the movie.
Yeah, a story that I just sent out a script. It's the hero is called the Sleeper Agent, and it's all about basically government agencies messing with drugs and stuff like that, and they unleash a person who can do lucid dreaming and things like that. I just think it's funny that I actually had to diagram a page to explain it to the artists. Have you ever done it? Well, Mike, you're your own artist.
I did that for the very first time just the other day. Normally I would just say I just write a normal script, panel 1, panel 2, but I had a specific idea in mind, so I was like this. But my thumbnails that I'm terrible at it. I'm not going to show anyone.
I gotta say, it's been a while for me, but I just remembered that probably about a week and a half ago, I had my first lucid dream in a long time. I realized I was dreaming. I was looking at a mirror, and I basically it's like, I think I'm dreaming. So I reached towards the mirror, and then I grabbed my own hand. Like my hand came out of the mirror, and I was like, "Yep, I'm dreaming."
Oh,
that's
wow.
awesome. Yeah, mirrors play a pretty big deal in a lot of people's lucid dreaming. Did you see the other day they've classified the lucid dream as a completely separate new state of consciousness?
No.
I did
Yeah,
not
because
see that.
you got like alpha, beta, gamma, like all these different kinds of brain waves that you have, and then when you are not dreaming normally, you get a shift as well, like delta or whatever. And yeah, they've been doing a lucid dreaming study apparently, and it's a whole new. Well, it's not like consciousness. It's not like dreaming. It's something else. And I totally believe that.
Is this something you've been fascinated with for a while?
Yeah. It's pretty much inspired me to make my story. I used to lucid dream all the time, every night, pretty much. And back when I had a weird sleeping schedule. Now I sleep normally. I don't really do it that much anymore, but yeah, it's fascinating, and there's so much to it that I feel like it's a whole untapped state of mind in our modern day life.
John really loves mythology almost as much as I do, I think. So explain how this all connects to Gilgamesh.
Well, in the Lucent, a lot of this sort of mystical power and mythology, and like throughout history, there've been these great heroes and moments and unexplainable events and everything. Well, in my story, that is all, you tap into those powers through your dreams. And then that knowledge was kind of buried. And some people are still aware of it and using it, but it's all very controlled and everything. And that's why Ella is like this crazy good dreamer. She's sort of stumbled into the world, and but the legacy goes all the way back to the beginning of civilization, of people using their dreams to unlock not only higher states of consciousness but also really cool powers.
I just got to say, I thought of the story first in my role-playing game 20 years ago. So.
That's actually a really good question. Sound Engraver asks, so how do you deal with stakes if the world is in a dream? So I'm not doing the kind of Matrix thing. It was like, if you get hurt in the dream, you get hurt in real life. That's not what I'm doing. It's, well, in this book in particular, it is all about sort of unlocking mental capabilities and things like that, and that does play into effect a great deal in the greater story. So there is a thing in my book where you can actually interact with other people in your dreams, share secrets, share powers, learn things, all sorts of stuff. So it is like a secret veil world underneath the real world. So yeah, sure, you can't get physically hurt, but you can absolutely, you know, the stakes can be as real as anything if you can transfer information and learn things and learn secrets and find new places and get new states of mind. Yeah, there's all sorts of things you can do.
Here's my 2 cents in that entire thing, because I really like your idea. If I was to do something like that, it would be the fact that in your dreams would affect basically how virtuous you are, because you don't have the normal blocks of consciousness to stop you from doing things you wouldn't normally do. So you might not do things that are very virtuous. And if your powers come from virtue, then that would affect how powerful you could be. That would be my take on it. But I like yours.
The way things work in my world is there's the mental, the spiritual, and the physical. So, you know, when you're in the dreams, you leave your physical, but you can bring your spiritual and mental form there. So if you get hurt there, your body's not going to get hurt, but you need all three of these spheres to maintain. So if you get your spirituality destroyed in the spirit world, you lost 1/3 of what makes you. If you lose your mentality, maybe you're in a coma and things like that. So the sleeper agent, if he gets wounded in the dreams, yes, it's just as bad as physical. But like, just think of people in the real world who just never wake up from a coma. Those people were probably engaged in some sort of dream mental battle that we just can't to figure out yet. Just some people who just fall into depravity and madness, stuff like that, they were probably spiritually destroyed. And then obviously people who just killed, their body was destroyed, things like that. So when I keep toying with someday in the future, I'd like to make a role-playing game, and it's going to work on, there's going to be stats for your mental, stats for your spiritual, and then there's going to be an oval where that's you. You know what I mean? What do they call it? The Venn diagrams kind of thing. So if you're Doctor Strange and you release your spirit form, you release 1/3 because I guess you still take your mentality with you. I haven't worked at it yet. I gotta get to that point.
Yeah,
so I state real consequences. Yep, I do horrible things in my dreams. Well, I'm glad you live far away from me. I have the most pleasant dreams. Yesterday, I had bad dreams because I woke up in the middle of my wife wasn't there. Like I said, it's the first time she's been away and then I went back to sleep and I was dreaming about ghosts and scary stuff. I have the most pleasant dreams. I can't wait to go to sleep. Do you, Michael, do you have nightmares? Is that why you're fascinated with lucid dreaming?
I originally developed the skill to lucid dream after having recurring nightmares as a child. That's what happened. It would always be at the same place. I can remember it vividly like it was yesterday. And just eventually I realized this is a dream, and I just would wake myself up out of it. But then eventually I was like, hang on, if this is a dream, I have a lot more power than I think I do, and I can start fighting back. And then it started from there. And it is that's why The Matrix made such an impression on me, because I was like, I've lived this. I've learnt skills, like crazy skills inside dreams to fight back against nightmares and, become really powerful in the dream and, develop like you would normally skills over a long period of time. That was like cool.
When I was in college, I heard about lucid dreaming, and I kind of got fascinated with it. And I remember I didn't want to interrupt you before, but this book that I was reading, they said, like, when you're in a dream, like, give yourself like a mantra, like, look at your hands. You're like, and then, because you ever notice you never really see your own hands in your own dream. So, like, force yourself to recognize your hand. And then they say, look for a mirror, and then use the mirror as some sort of
clock.
Yeah, or a clock. I never heard. So I've been trying to do that, and I never got to that point where I could control my dreams, but I did get to the point where if the dream is bad, I could switch the channel. Is the only way to describe it. Like, I don't like this dream. This dream has bothered me. And that without waking up, I could shift the dream. Okay, this is
cool. I never tried that before. I would always just wake myself up if it got too intense. I'd be like, "Nope, I'm out." This,
like, I don't know. I guess it's because I got to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I stay awake too late. You know, I'm like, I ain't waking up and starting this process all over again. I'm just changing the channel. But I could do that, and I can recognize. Okay, I'm in a dream. I don't like this. Let's get a different dream. And then sometimes I'll go to bed, and like as I'm laying in bed, I'm like, I'd like to continue the dream that I had last night. And then I'll close my eyes. I'm not going to say all the time, but a good time, I'll continue the dream from the night before. And since you got me talking about dreams, have you ever, in your dream, you remember other dreams that you can't remember when you're awake?
yes, yeah, that's really fascinating actually, because you can kind of develop a sort of second life.
Yeah,
where
like
you
I'll go
know
like,
people
oh my
and
God.
events and feelings and things that you only ever experience in the dream.
I have friends that aren't real. If that sounds crazy, you know, they're gonna come
Places you've been,
right.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was funny when I was a kid in my dream. Jimmy Walker from Good Times was in my dreams. Like me and Jimmy Walker would hang out. You know,
Yeah, for a while I was really good pals with Donald Trump. I remember that. That was
there you go. There you go. My average
Jake Bancroft. I was going to say I have almost the exact same experience as you. I used to have recurring dreams when I was a kid, which terrified me, and it was basically the world had turned to ash, and I was basically on a playground, and I was inside like a semicircular, what is it, jungle gym kind of thing, and there was like a button there. Anyways, but I actually started to get sleep paralysis, whereas I would wake up but my body wouldn't move, and it really freaked me out, right? So I started to learn how to actually control things that way, because I didn't want to actually go back to that. But I got to the point where my dreams were, they're like, right now I have dreams that I describe them to people, they're like, you do realize that's a nightmare, and I'm going, no it isn't, because I'm just having fun. I know I'm having fun. It's like there's aliens from, you know, the Alien movie or things like that chasing me around. It's like, yeah, I'm just having fun. I know it's a dream.
There's actually a thing you can do. It's called wake-induced lucid dreaming, which is pretty trippy and wild, where you essentially just sort of meditate yourself from a conscious state directly into a lucid dream. And in the middle of it, you kind of pass the threshold from consciousness into that state, you do get sleep paralysis. And in that time, like anything can happen. Like, you know, characters can kind of come into your bedroom and start messing with you and all sorts of stuff. So you got to kind of have a strong will and recognize that it's fake. But once you are in that state, I tell you, it is nuts. Like, it is a wild experience. Actually, it's called wild. Wake-induced lucid dreaming.
Some really weird things that go along with my sleep, because I had that problem with sleep when I was a kid. So I basically would, you know, like you said, sort of meditate in order to fall asleep. So I would make sure my mind was clear, and then I would slow down my heart rate, and then that would make me fall asleep. But after doing it for about 20 years, I learned there was an unseen consequence to it, in that if I was sitting down and my mind wasn't concentrating on something and my heart rate started to fall, I would fall asleep no matter what I was doing. I could be reading a book out loud, I could be having a conversation, I would fall asleep.
Yeah, I had a problem for a short while with insomnia, and I was just like, all right. So I would lay in bed and I just concentrate on the top of my head, and I just breathe in and out. And I said, okay, the stress is going to come out. Like those cartoons, you know, those cartoons when the cartoon character turns red, and then all of a sudden you see the red go down. I just picture that. Okay, here's the stress. Here's the stress. Okay, release. Okay, it's in my neck now. Just relax my neck, and I tell you, I'll get to my belly button by the time I'm asleep. And
that's actually how you do the wake-induced lucid dreaming thing. I would go from the toes up though, instead of from the head down, and it would be a real fight to stay conscious during the whole thing.
Marcus says when he had COVID.
Hello, RJ. I think you just turned your mic off.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, but no, I know exactly what Marcus is talking about. I used to have basically slider dreams where I would go from one reality to another.
I would have slider dreams, but it was literally about White Castle sliders because I have disgusting slide. That's another thing, RJ. When you come here and play role play, Micah, you can come too. We're getting White Castle. Our role playing session will be sponsored by White Castle. I guarantee it. Another interesting dream quest that I always ask people. I'm so glad you're here, Mike, talking about dreams. It's one of my favorite subjects. How do you fly in your dreams? This is actually a funnier question. Me and my cousins, we all talked about. We were hysterical laughing, listening to how individual, because everybody flies in their dream. How do you fly?
I'm like, especially after the Matrix, I started flying a lot like Neo. Like, originally you would say it's kind of like Superman, but yeah, I think it would be more like Neo puts his hands to the side, head first, like to his actual side of his body.
Okay.
And just sort of like you're a torpedo kind of thing. And it took a long while to get to be able to do that confidently. Because sometimes you try, especially when I was starting to fly, you're just kind of like floating around or like almost swimming in the air.
RJ, how do you fly in your dreams?
I always glide. Quite honestly, it's like it's kind of like the way the Hulk, jumps is like I hit the ground every once in a while and just glide. I don't know. It's something like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Where they touch and then they glide.
You have like a personal gravity. It's funny because I remember as a little kid, I was like, I want to fly in this dream, and I remember something was chasing me. I don't remember what was chasing me, but I must have been in like second or third grade, and I tripped and I fell and I started flying. But just picture like my chest was on a skateboard. That's how high off the ground. I couldn't fly any higher than that for like years. Yeah. That's like I flew like a foot off the ground, like a land speeder. Then I remember a dream where something was happening and I just started kicking my feet and I flew as long as I kicked my feet. And that dream was so realistic because I could feel the leaves, because in my block, there was millions, there was like a canopy of trees. And I remember going through the trees and I was above the trees and I remember freaking out. I'm like, I'm really high. I must be like 60. And I was like kicking my feet because if I stopped, I would plummet. I was like, I woke up exhausted. Now I could fly like Neo or whatever. But there was an evolution of my flight.
It's something you have to practice. And I think it's just confidence in, like in the Matrix, how he says, you think that's air you're breathing.
Yeah.
It's just understanding that it's your mind that's in control, not this environment that you find yourself in, and you're whatever it is, you're in your ego are battling each other to sort of what's taking control. And I found, just the more confidence you have, the more you can do it. Where I'd end up like Superman, used to like rise up and look down at the people around you.
Another thing, like I always like in my dreams, I get excited. I have superpowers in this dream, and then I explore the superpowers like super strength, things like that. But you know what? One power I could never do in my dreams is teleport. I can never do it. I can't teleport in I could go through walls. I love that dream where I could walk through walls. I could stretch. I think everybody has a stretching dream, but like I can never teleport. And I remember in my dream, like I want to go there, but I just can't teleport. That's the one power.
The closest I got was phasing through things, like phasing through people and phasing through objects and walls and things like that, like Kitty Pryde, but never teleporting. I did try. I could never just zap myself somewhere else though.
Yeah, I think it's because we as humans are just two-dimensional, stuck in this area or whatever. I don't know, but I get excited. I keep talking about like my dreams are very pleasant. I have a couple of unpleasant dreams. Like every once in a while I have that dream that it's the last day of college. I'm like, hey RJ, hey Michael, how you doing? And RJ's like, well, I can't, you're gonna fail philosophy because you never showed up. I was like, I was in philosophy, and then I look.
Yeah, I get that dream. I still get. I graduated from high school almost 30 years ago. I still get that.
Right, and now I got to go run and find my professor, and I don't know when the classroom. Yeah. I was never there. Oh my God, I wake up like I can't believe I had that dream. And the other dream is it's kind of like that Adam Sandler movie. It's like, hey John, I know you're 57 years old, but you never graduated from 8th grade. And now I got to go put my Catholic school uniform on and sit in an 8th grade classroom. I'm like, I know this. I know, and I'm like everybody else.
That too. Go back to school.
But this dream that I have, only one other person ever understood this dream, and I can't describe it. It's a dream of sensations. There's nothing. There's an absence of all feeling, and I call it the brown dream because the absence of everything. It's just like it's almost like a ruddy brown is the only thing that I can see, even if my eyes are closed. And the sensation is everything's big, but at the same time everything's small. And oh my God, I wake up screaming from that dream, and I have it once every 10 years, and every time I get it, I can't describe it. Does this sound anything familiar to you guys? Because when I was my friend Jimmy was like, "Oh my God, I hate that." You know,
the worst dream for me. I don't know it. I don't know anything about that. The worst dream for me is the loop one. You know, you get stuck in a loop. You think you wake up, and then you realize you're still dreaming, and then you wake up, and it's happening again and again and again. I get that every now and then. It's awful.
Yeah.
Mine's always a labyrinth dream. I get stuck in something, like I'm inside, and it's usually like a shopping mall or a really big house or things like I think I'm getting out, and it just goes on and on and on forever. Or sometimes it's in the woods even. It's like it's a canopy that I can't get out of. It's a labyrinth I can't get out of.
The frustrate, like I'm trying to get to a class or something like that, and I'm running through school looking through windows, and people are waving at me, and I don't know what class. But like I'll have a dream. I can't remember my locker combination, and the whole dream is just like 14 to the left, 18 to the, or I'm trying to call RJ on a rotary phone, 4, 6. Oh, I got to start over again. You know, and that's the whole dream. Oh, Sound Engraver says instead of the big small experience close far. I wonder if it's the same sensation. One of my friends says you're dreaming about before you were even born. I was like, all right, I'll take that explanation. It sounds like good as anything else.
What's the earliest dream you remember?
The earliest, you're gonna laugh because it was me and Jimmy Walker. I told you, me and Jimmy Walker were pals in my dreams. We hit a ball into the next door neighbor's backyard, and at this time I was scared of the next door. She turned out to be the sweetest old lady, but at the time I thought she was a witch. She just looks like a witch. She had the wart and everything. And I hopped over her fence, and she opened her garage door, and thousands of talking cats came running at me, screaming, to the point I was terrified of cats for the longest time. And I remember looking at Jimmy Walker, and he was just like, "You're on your own," and he took off. You know, so I stopped watching Good Times as retaliation.
Mine was just building a snowman. I must have been really young because it's something that I just sort of kept in my memory since forever.
Building a snow. How old do you think you were?
I mean, like really young, maybe 2 or 3 or something like that. Yeah, it's one of the earliest memories I have.
Yeah. RJ, what about you?
The ash dream that I talked about earlier, that would probably be the first one. Although I had another one that might have been earlier, which was my brothers and I going down a path through the woods in the back end of where we lived. And there was basically a living mattress that blocked the way, and he had like jagged metal teeth, tried to eat us.
Wow. I remember dreaming a dog was chasing me. You know, that was scary. I mean, that happens in real life too. Yeah. Well, Michael, it says here there's not much snow where you live.
Well, people think there's no snow in Australia, which isn't true. There's a lot of snow. It's just usually in the hills and mountains, but there's no snow where I actually live. And especially when I had that dream, I was up in Queensland, which is the north, and there's no snow there ever. So that's probably why I remembered it.
Do any of you ever have dreams where you see yourself living in the past as if it's your real life? For me, it's always ancient Egypt. Wow. My wife would love that.
I've never had that. That sounds awesome, though.
I do have dreams that I'm living in other places. I do have dreams that I'm like, I'm living a whole nother life, you know, kind of like Picard in what is that episode called? The Inner Light, things like that. Yeah. Like, and then I wake up and I'm like, I miss my friends from my dream. Toby, whom I've never met.
Did you ever watch The Orville?
No, I got to watch it. Everybody tells me I would like it. I just don't like that Seth MacFarlane. So he just gets on.
You got to put that aside.
I know.
But, there's an episode in that where they do something similar, but it's actually even worse. And I will spoil it because it's pretty crazy. And I was hoping that they would come back to it because I feel like it was very a really interesting moral sci-fi conundrum where the guy gets sent back in time and gets trapped there and has a family and kids and everything, a whole life. And then they eventually, they make it there. For them, it's only been a couple of hours. They make it there to rescue him. And he's like, I'm not going back. I've got a wife. I've got children. Look, they're grown up.
Right.
Like, no, we have to leave. We have to end this timeline. It's like, you want to kill my family? And they do. They erase the timeline, and he ends up back on the ship. And it's like, oh man, that's crazy that I completely, ignored protocol like that and did all that. And then it was just left, and I was like, holy shit, like they actually killed.
He should be bitter and angry, right?
And well, he lost all memory of the 14 years. It wasn't quite like the Inner Light, but I was like, damn. And he was saying like maybe they're still alive in some alternate multiverse reality that we're not able to get to or something. I was like, man, I hope they go back and explore that, because that is brutal.
That is brutal. You just reminded me, one of my biggest pet peeves with the Infinity War and Endgame movies is they had that 5-year blip, and I always thought, first off, I hate that concept, but I always thought like they messed up. They messed up, Aaron. What they should have had was for 5 years, Tony Stark should have been obsessed with fixing everything. He's working on time travel for 5 years. He's working on time travel, but in the meantime, he has a daughter, and he's with Pepper and everything. And then Ant-Man shows up, and that gives him that little breakthrough that he needs. And now he's working on the time travel, and all of a sudden he's like, if I set this back, I lose my daughter. There's no guarantee that she'll be born again. Me and my wife are not going to make the lovey-doveys on that particular day. And, what are the odds that so now I think, to me, it would make like a great. Thanos was willing to sacrifice his daughters. Is Iron Man willing to sacrifice his daughters to fix everything? You know what I mean? And then he finally does, and Pepper has no recollection of the daughter that's gone. And now he's filled with guilt that he sacrificed his daughter, that he's kind of like obsessed with recreating his daughter. And Gwyneth Paltrow is just like, hey, relax, calm down, Tiger. You know what I mean? But she doesn't know that he's just.
Sounds like it'd make a good comic book story, right? But I don't know about the mainstream audience wanting to see that. Like that, even like, again, when I watched this episode of The Orville, I was shaken. But that's what you expect on like a sci-fi show. At a big mainstream movie like Endgame or whatever, I think people would have rioted.
I don't know. I think it would have lent like
I totally understand what you're saying. It would have really.
So now it brings up, how do you guys feel about time travel in your stories? Are you guys going to utilize time travel at all?
Never.
Okay, that's a hard answer. You can't argue with that. Never. Screw that time travel over there at the Lucent. So
no.
What about you, RJ?
There's yes and no. I would agree with Michael. I would say never. But at the same time, my world has these pocket dimensions. Basically, you go through a door, and some of them, time works differently in them than in the normal world. So they might be stuck, say, in the Middle Ages in this tiny little area, which is like a town, because time just goes slower there. You know what I mean? It's not actually going back in time.
Oh, it's like a Brigadoon type thing or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I tried to write a paradox-free time travel story. And I think to be paradox-free, you absolutely can only go forward in time. But then how does that even become a cool story if you can't take the knowledge back? So I thought, okay, maybe it's just like you don't actually go there, but you can see into the future for a fixed period of time, and then the information of what you saw is able to be in your head in present or something like that. And I got pretty far with a synopsis, but I just kept running into paradoxes, and I was like, I don't even know if it's possible.
Well, I've already spoiled it before. Issue 4 of Heroic Tales, I have 2 complete stories in each issue. One is dealing with time travel, and one's dealing with the multiverse. And my crazy person's take on, you can time travel, but the moment you mess with, there's only one timeline. So if you go back in time, it already happened. So you can't go back in time and kill Hitler, because Hitler was born and he did things. So either something will prevent you from killing Hitler or whatever. But if you actually like succeed, you go back in time and you prevent your grandparents or whatever, you're creating a paradox, and that'll trap you in like a Groundhog's Day, and you kind of separate from the main timeline. So anybody watching you time travel, they just see you disappear, and for all intents and purposes, you just died. You know what I mean? But in reality, you're stuck in some sort of soap bubble. 50% of the time is going one way, 50% of the time is going back, like Groundhog's Day, for forever, until either you get rescued or it bursts and everything winks out of existence. So that's how I'm dealing with it. I can't stand each. It's such a human arrogant concept that every one of my decisions creates a universe. Where does the energy come from? Like, I remember arguing with one of my friends. I'm like, okay, so if I eat a hot dog instead of a hamburger, I created a universe. How arrogant is that concept?
You know, I can't stand that. I like what Dave says. Yeah, you could have a supervillain with a time-based power or something like that. Or you could, like, someone is, you know, like how they portrayed Peter Parker in the movie as sort of like when he's in his Spider-Man ways, time just sort of moves slowly around him because he's moving so fast, kind of like like a really fast moving insect or something. So I think that's cool. And I've got stuff like that in my book too, but it isn't like going back and killing Hitler or anything like that. It's
funny that Dave from Genuine Comics says the only time travel stories will be related to a supervillain. Time travel is a supervillain power. You know, there's some powers that are because Mike, your comic's not particularly superheroes. Your comic.
No, it does have powers, but it's not made at all to be a superhero story.
You're like, I don't know, like a sci-fi adventurers, kind of like Matrix.
I know the genre, but I'm not telling anyone. It's a mystery. I like it.
Okay. So yeah, but we can all agree that if you have a character with death touch, he has to be a bad guy. You know, there's some powers that are just bad guy powers. You know,
you can't be the hero with the death touch.
Yeah, you give the guy change. Oh, sorry, I killed another one because I owed him a nickel. You know, that's a bad guy power. But like time travel to me is a bad guy power. Like mind control is a bad guy power. You know, I Superman doesn't just show up and everybody just, okay, we're good guys now. You took away our free agency. You have to beat them into submission.
I always thought it wouldn't actually make a good story, but to me, the idea of seeing into the future, it'd be like, okay, I can see into the future, but it only lasts for a couple of seconds. I can only see what I'm going to do in the future, and it's not about anything actually significant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had my story was that they built a machine and it goes to only forward a certain amount of time for a certain period. And, you know, these people essentially open a stockbroker, but they're actually, you know, they're looking into the future. So they make an absolute butt ton of money, but then, you know, they start seeing the future and they start seeing things they don't want to see, bad things happening. And they start trying to, you know, use their money that they've accumulated to start changing it. And it all just, you know, unravels. So I thought it was a cool story, but my whole purpose was that I wanted to have no paradoxes, and I couldn't figure it out.
That's tough. There's one great Alan Moore time travel story. It's collected in Twisted Tales of Alan Moore. It's these two idiot cops that are solving a crime, but they're idiots. So they keep going back in time and messing things up. So then they got to go back in time and fix it. And then they got to, we forgot this. And it's funny because they keep passing through this lobby and there's hundreds of people, but you start to see, that's them in disguise because they're trying not to interact with the other. So this one panel gets reused over and over, and it explains every little bizarre thing. And you better believe I try to diagram that and figure out the problem. But I just love that. That's the kind of, like, 12 Monkeys to me is the best time travel story.
Oh, it's that movie took me so many times to understand because I was kind of young when it came out. And when it finally clicked with me, I was like, that is brilliant.
Yeah, the time travel caused everything to happen, you know.
It's so good.
Like Back to the Future is the ultimate time travel story. But to me, that's not how time travel can actually work. Like, it's a great mechanism to see that photograph fading. You know, it clues the audience. Like, that's a popcorn movie. I cut it some slack. But like, you know, like I always say to people, like, where does the energy come that's erasing this photograph? And then the photograph grows back. Like, is there an intelligence behind this? Like, people like understand what I'm talking about. They tell me to shut up at the same time. And I agree. It's a popcorn flick. You know. So yeah.
Ryan just told me I did not realize it is 10:46 and my stream was supposed to start at 10:40. I gotta go, guys. This is a really good conversation. Nice to talk to you again, Michael.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun.
You too.
Mike, you want to go or did?
I do have to go in about 5 minutes or so. I'm starting my own stream as well too. Everyone's starting a stream.
Yeah, my wife just came home after being away, so we're gonna go have dinner. So I didn't want to, but I would have talked if you wanted to stay to talk. But this is a good time. All right, so thanks a lot, Mike. You're welcome anytime, man. This is a pleasure to talk to you. I got both of your Lucid hardcover books. I really enjoyed them. You know, a lot of fun. Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Mike hosted my launch of my comics. You know, Mike's a great guy. Anytime you want to come in, just say the word.
Yeah, we'll do. All right,
Never 12 Monkeys. Check it out. It's one of the best times.
Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt, and they're both amazing.
It's one of Brad Pitt's first movies.
Yeah, the guy I read. I don't know how true it is, but apparently the director was worried that he wouldn't be able to portray how crazy he was. So he knew he was a smoker. He took away his cigarettes. Yeah, he made sure he didn't do it. So he was kind of all on edge the whole time. I thought, oh, that's a great idea because it really is an amazing performance.
Yeah, it really is good. It's my favorite. Yeah, so Olo Femi, check it out and let me know if you like it or not. But thanks a lot, Michael. I guess we're going to shut this down. I'm going to go up and hang out with my wife.
No worries. I got to bounce too because I got to stream in a bit.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.